This podcast does not provide medical nor legal advice. Please listen to the complete disclosure at the end of the recording.
Hello, possums, and welcome to Everyone Dies, the podcast where we talk about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. I'm Marianne Matzo, a nurse practitioner, and I use my experience from working as a nurse for 45 years to help answer your questions about what happens at the end of life.
And I'm Charlie Navarrete, an actor in New York City, and here to offer an every-person viewpoint to our podcast. We are both here because we believe that the more you know, the better prepared you will be to make end-of-life decisions.
So please relax, get yourself a cup of tea or something stronger and some cake. And thank you for spending the next hour with Charlie and me for our discussion about how to become a morning person.
Oh.
In the first half, I hate
morning,
the morning
person. What is the point of that? Well, I'm sorry, Marianne. You were saying, yeah.
In the first half, Charlie explores the real-life Murder, She Wrote woman who influenced forensic science. In the second half, I'm going to talk about the things we can do to get ourselves out of bed in the morning with the added bonus of feeling refreshed. And in the third half, Charlie answers a question about dating while a spouse is living in a nursing home with advanced Alzheimer's disease. And what could motivate you to get up in the morning but knowing that there's something wonderful to eat for breakfast? Our recipe this week is not only a great addition to your next funeral lunch, but could also entice you out of bed. This casserole is made with day-old mini croissants, caramelized onions, and the rich and cheesy egg custard flavored with just a touch of Dijon. This croissant-baked casserole is made the night before, kept in the refrigerator until you're ready to bake. Rise and shine.
Rise and shine my ass. Really, God, I'm sorry, Marianne. What? Really? No, who? Well, no. Gosh, the thought of like.
Gosh, you're really saying gosh to me? Gee willikers, Charlie.
Whoa. Yeah, this whole notion of becoming a morning person. No, it just takes me into a bad place where I start saying things like "gosh." No, and even to wake up to a I was going to say gin and tonic, Bloody Mary. There, you see, you've shocked me so much. I confused my beverages. Yeah, no, what? No, what is? I don't see the point of that, of learning to become a morning person. Why would one learn one?
Well, then
that?
Then you will have to not sleep through my second half and listen to what I have to say.
See, now I can't take a nap anymore. Gosh, there we are, the same gosh again. No, Marianne, no, this is not. No.
Okay, but
yes.
After you hear the second half, then let's discuss it amongst ourselves.
Okay, so I have to stay here and listen to it? I mean, I look forward to staying here and listening to it. Jeez. All right. So listen, folks, I bet you didn't know that crime scene investigations, CSI, started in the 1940s by an heiress with an interest in building dollhouses. She helped.
Charlie, are you making stuff up now?
Maybe. Actually, no, I'm not. This really happened. It's not Mark Harmon who started this whole CSI thing. No, that's NCIS, right? Right, because that's not really made up, but it is CSI. So.
But CSI is not made up.
No, it's not.
So what's your point?
You see, you just have me all in a kerfuckle. What the hell is that word? Kerfuckle.
No, you've got to stop saying that because Sandy's going to bleep you out. Kerfluffle.
Fluffle?
You got to put the L. You got to put the L after the F.
Yeah, that's what she said. Yes, of course. Gosh, this whole morning thing, Marianne. This may be
That's your third gosh of the day. You are out of goshes now.
This is going to be a long recording. So, as I was saying, crime scene investigations, CSI, started in the 1940s by an heiress with an interest in building dollhouses. She helped to found the first of its kind Department of Legal Medicine at Harvard University when the field of forensics was in its infancy. Frances Glesner Lee came from a wealthy New Hampshire family and was a volunteer police officer. She was very good at observing details and felt that this was a skill the police could be taught. At the time, there was very little training for investigators, meaning that they often overlooked or mishandled key evidence or irreversibly tampered with crime scenes. Few had any medical training that would allow them to determine cause of death. Ms. Lee developed the idea of creating ultra-realistic but tiny diorama murder scenes, which she called the nutshell studies of unexplained death. Each diorama was mystery-based on one or more actual police case, and observers were to solve the mystery by analyzing the micro-evidence left behind. She constructed the nutshells, as she called them after hearing a detective once say, "Convict the guilty, clear the innocent, and find the truth in a nutshell." Beginning in the 1940s, to teach investigators to properly canvass a crime scene to effectively uncover and understand evidence. The equivalent to virtual reality in their time, her masterfully crafted dioramas feature handmade objects to render scenes with exacting accuracy and meticulous detail. Every element of the dioramas, from the angle of minuscule bullet holes, the placement of latches on windows, the patterns of blood splatters, and the discoloration of painstakingly painted miniature corpses, challenges trainees' powers of observation and deduction. The nutshells are so effective that they are still used in training seminars today at the office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Baltimore. While the nutshells represent composites of real and extremely challenging cases featuring homicides, suicides, and accidental deaths, Lee imagined and designed each setting herself. She was both exacting and highly creative in her pursuit of detail, knitting tiny stockings by hand with straight pins, hand-rolling tiny tobacco-filled cigarettes and burning the ends, writing tiny letters with a single-hair paintbrush, and creating working locks for windows and doors. Lee was devoted to the search for truth and justice for everyone, and she often featured victims such as women, the poor, and people living on the fringes of society, whose cases might be overlooked or tainted with prejudice on the part of the investigator. She wanted trainees to recognize and overcome any unconscious biases and to treat each case with rigor, regardless of the victim. Because the nutshells are still active training tools, the solutions to each remain secret. Crime scene reports, written by Lee to accompany each case, were given to the forensic trainees. We have a link in our show notes so that you can take a tour and go inside the dollhouses as well as read the case reports. You really never know what can happen when you carry out your ideas and how many people they can help. It's very cool.
It's really fascinating. Yeah. And they have like these, virtual reality kind of thing where you can like walk through these dollhouses. And even I was reading, they said even the calendars, it doesn't just show the calendar month that's current, but if you could flip through the calendar and there's calendar months afterwards. I mean, her detail was phenomenal.
The other thing when I first read this, in the back of my mind, this is the 1940s. This is a woman. America was very, treatment of women in America was very different in the 1940s. So that she was able to do all this, and people listened to her.
Well, she was an heiress woman.
Well,
and I think they listened to her because she gave an awful lot of money to Harvard to set up these programs.
Okay.
And, she paid for the building of all of these dollhouses. And I read somewhere that she turned the second floor of her mansion into like the workspace and hired 2 people full time, like a carpenter, and I forget what the other person was, to work with her.
Yeah.
Plus, she endowed a lot of money over to Harvard for, like the display of these. Like if I made these and called Harvard and said, hey, I got these dollhouses. How about we have a conference and display them? I'm not thinking much would happen, if I didn't have a couple $1 million to go with it.
Well, maybe they would recommend you go see the Barbie movie, and just that would be it. Yeah. Have you seen Barbie?
No, have you?
Yes.
And
it was enjoyable.
Really?
Yeah. It was enjoyable. I also saw Oppenheimer, which I enjoyed much more. But yeah, no, it was enjoyable. Have you seen Oppenheimer?
No, I've got the book on my nightstand to finish. I don't really go to movies. Like I'll watch them if I'm working on a project at home, but we don't really go to movies.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll wait. I wait till it comes to wherever I am. You have to deliver it to my home.
And with that enlightening enlightenment from the two of us, please go to our webpage for this week's recipe of Croissant breakfast casserole, plus additional resources for this program. Your tax-deductible donations are always welcome so that we can continue to offer you quality programming. Thank you in advance for making your donation at www.everyonedies.org. That's dies.org. Marianne?
Thanks, Charlie. So I feel like I have to undo your bad sleep habits here. So let me see if I can convince you to take a little bit better care of yourself. So sleep disturbance is the most pronounced symptom in depression. Research studies conducted over time, now these are called longitudinal studies, have identified insomnia, not being able to sleep, as an independent risk factor for the development of new or recurrent depression among young, middle-aged, and older adults. This bidirectional association, meaning you can be depressed and not sleep, or not sleep and get depressed, so this bidirectional association between sleep disturbance and depression has created a new perspective that sleep problems are no longer a byproduct of depression, but a predictive symptom. What this means for you is that when we are grieving, we will likely not sleep well, which sets us up to feel more depressed, which does not help us heal from our grief. Getting enough good quality sleep is vital to our physical and mental health. So today I'm going to chat with you about things you can do to achieve 8 hours of quality sleep so your body and heart can heal from your grief. Now, you might identify as a night person, but your tendencies are not your destiny. There are tangible things that you can do to get better quality and quantity of sleep. Now, in all honesty, I've had very little sleep in the last 40 years. I do identify as a night person who gets more energy as the day goes on. I'd prefer to go to bed late and sleep in. But that doesn't work for life. It doesn't work for gardening in Oklahoma heat because you really need to be outside at dawn because it's too hot after 11. So in my retirement, I've incorporated all of these research-based suggestions, and so far I'm getting a more consistent night's sleep, but I've got to tell you, change is hard. It's hard to go to bed at my bedtime that I've determined, and I'll tell you how I do that. It's hard to get up in the morning, but it gets easier over time. So, how can you make this change? First, pick your ideal wake-up time. Determining when you're going to get up is easier than deciding your bedtime. Bedtime is when you get into bed. Sleep time is how much sleep you do in bed. Now, Rafael Palaio, who's a psychiatrist at Stanford, he says that the brain is trying to predict dawn and dusk at all times. That mechanism, governed by so-called clock genes, which regulate our circadian rhythms, exist across the animal kingdom. So what this means is that historically, all time before electricity became possible, we got up with the sun and kind of closed down and went to bed with the dark because you couldn't see much in the dark. You couldn't read and play video games in the dark back then. So that's ingrained. It's a part. Those are our circadian rhythms. It's how we're built. And so if we stay up all night and then try to, do things during the day or not do things during the day, we're going against our natural circadian rhythms, which is going against our biology, which makes it harder for ourselves and can take a toll on your mental health in terms of your depression and can make it harder to heal from grief. So step one is to determine what time you need to wake up in the morning. And the other thing that he talks about, Palaio talks about, is that you need to be on a schedule. When we have our babies, we kind of put them on a schedule. It's not all willy-nilly going to bed and getting up. It's like there's things that the body kind of adjusts to. And so if you decide to do this kind of program to get your body into sort of a schedule, you need to do it all the time. Weekends, vacations, whatever. It's your biorhythm. So you figure out, like, what time do I need to get up in the morning? Like for me, like I said, I want to be outside so that I can garden for a good 4 or 5 hours before the heat is awful. So pick your wake-up time. Then set your bedtime. Once you set a preferred wake-up time, determine how many hours of sleep you want, and then work backward to arrive at your bedtime. General guidelines are that adults should sleep between 7 and 9 hours, and you'll want to personalize that so that you wake up feeling refreshed and not tired. After you've done the math, don't let yourself get under the covers until the appropriate bedtime, even if you just want to lie down. So for me, I want to get up at 6:30 in the morning. So I want to be in bed by about 10-ish. I can set my Fitbit to send me a message at 10 it sends me a message, it beeps, buzzes on my arm, and it says it's time to wind down. I know I tend to get wrapped up in whatever I'm doing, and I know how easy it is for me to miss my bedtime, to look up and say, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm still watching this movie or whatever it is. And so that kind of signal, that buzz on my arm lets me know, here's what time it is. This is what you're supposed to be doing now. Number 3 is, once you set your alarm, don't hit snooze. Now, I've always considered the snooze button to be one of the wonders of the world, but I'll admit I'm wrong. Research studies have documented that the sleep we fall back into after our alarms goes off isn't worth the time it takes to enjoy it. Palaio says you're trading dreaming time for light sleep, and that's a bad idea. Instead of giving yourself those 9 extra minutes of snooze, or 18 that I gave myself, I had 2 snoozes. Get up when your alarm goes off at your chosen time. That's real hard for me. So what I do is I set my alarm on my phone and I put my phone where I can't reach it to snooze it. Now, these are things that I've had to do because, I can talk myself into staying in bed and not doing what I know is healthy to do. So I put up barriers to my being able to do it. My alarm is Willie Nelson singing, which I like, but when he's singing the same thing over and over again, I don't like. So I get out of bed and turn him off. Number 4 in this plan is to find something fun to do. We need a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Maybe you need to get to work on time. Maybe you don't want heat stroke from working in the garden in the hot sun. Maybe you have a great breakfast plan. Whatever the reason, exposing your body to the morning light is beneficial. And for those of you who always wear sunglasses when you go out, in the morning, go out without your sunglasses. Your eyes need to get that sun to get the message to your body, to secrete the right hormones, to say, wake up, rise and shine, wakey, wakey, let's go. The next is don't stress. If you wake up in the middle of the night, that's fine. In fact, everyone wakes up. Paleo says early research findings about sleep were that people wake up every hour and a half or so. It's an evolutionary practice that's left over from when we needed to do so to keep ourselves safe. Usually we don't even realize we're awake, but anyone who's ever laid in bed at night obsessively going over tomorrow's to-do list knows that that's not always the case. Still, waking up in the middle of the night is really not the problem. Being upset about it, that's the problem. Number 6 is to keep going. Making a change in our sleep takes practice. At least 6 weeks of consistently waking up at the hour we've chosen. Adopting a new habit takes the longest time to change. Our brain isn't meant to have big shifts so quickly. And for those of you who say, I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep and I'm going to get up and I'm going to exercise and then I'm not going to have any more coffee and I'm going to eat a vegan diet, and that all starts on Monday, doggone it. Your brain and your body will revolt. They're not going to have anything to do with it. We can make one change at a time. Pick one. And actually, I would suggest that the one that you pick would really be getting your sleep habits kind of regulated, because that's going to help you feel less depressed. It'll give you less energy. And from there, you can go on to whatever other behavior modifications you feel you want to make. But in terms of grief, getting enough sleep, sleeping through the night, feeling rested when you get up, that gives you some reserve to work through and heal from your grief. So, have I convinced you, Charles?
No. Now, while I agree in principle with everything you are saying, yeah, I really am a night person. I enjoy staying up late. I don't bother looking at the clock. And I mean, to your point, I mean, if I'm working on something or simply reading, or the few times I binge watch something, yeah, I just want to stay up and do it. And I intellectually, I understand, not a good habit. It'll, take wear and tear on your body. When that comes to mind, I think of Batman, The Dark Knight. I mean, Batman does his best work in the middle of the night. So just please keep that in mind. It's always the Batman syndrome. I don't.
Maybe you could keep in mind that Batman's not real.
Picky,
and he doesn't.
picky.
And he doesn't need any sleep. Do you get 8 hours of sleep a night? How many hours do you get when you sleep?
Well over 5. Yeah, it's and the other thing. Well, hang on a second. Yeah, I'm
over 5. Is that like 5.5?
I'm going to say on average, 5.5, 6 hours. the other thing is, and there are times I really do make myself go to sleep a little earlier. When I say a little earlier, it's still about midnight. Because you know what? I mean, for a while now, uh, my body just once the sun comes up, I'm up. My body says, "Okay, get up." Um, I don't know. It's just that has just been happening. I don't know, in the past year or so. My body just knows, and I try to keep the room as dark as possible. I put little eye shades on, so this the sun doesn't creep through my peepers. It does not matter. I just like
But
wake
you
up.
see, if 5 hours or 6 hours there is a lot of new research on sleep, and one of the things they're saying is that your brain kind of like shrinks a little bit and gets rid of toxins, and then swells back, and it takes 7 to 9 hours for that process to occur. So if you're only sleeping 5 hours a night, that kind of clean out
Right.
and detoxification can't happen. There's not enough time.
I agree with you. I understand that completely.
Well, I just put that out there as a way of going about it. I can only just tell you, I feel better. And I don't know if it's because I'm not working anymore or what, but I know I can remember a time when I had the kids and I was writing a grant, and I don't know, it was maybe 2 a.m, and I thought, oh my God, I got to go to bed, because if I don't go to bed now, I won't get 3 hours of sleep. And no, seriously.
No,
I remember thinking, I wish I didn't have to sleep because I have so much that I need to do. And I look back on that now and I think, what a crazy person,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. What I do is unhealthy, and I really need to make. I do it sometimes, like go to sleep earlier. I really need to make a more concerted effort to get into a new habit of going to sleep sooner and earlier and like that. So I agree 100%. I do need to do that. I ain't getting any younger. Yes,
well, that's the other thing.
That.
That's the other thing too, is that then like you'll see older people, doing the nap thing,
Mm-hmm.
and again, if you're really really tired, a half-hour nap is helpful. But I've always found if I nap, even if I set the alarm, I can't just do a half hour.
Oh,
it's like I'm asleep for hour and a half, 2 hours. So I've learned that I lose a lot of my day if I nap. So I'm more functional doing, going to bed by 10:30 and up at 6:30, and then I don't nap during the day. I just keep going. So that's kind of made my day more productive.
I don't know. You know what? In many parts of the world, people, do take their afternoon siestas, and
I loved that about Spain when I was there. It was like, I love that, but they do stay up later.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah.
They're eating dinner at 11 at night.
I know. I still enjoy doing that. I'm not a good role model, folks, for this.
I think in the last 3-4 years, they've probably figured that out, Charlie.
Yeah, I guess so. Geez. And to your thing about taking naps, I mean, there are times, if I have like a lot of reading to do, or I'm working on some writing, and I start to feel tired in the afternoon. I don't know when it started. I thought, well, I'll just lie down for 10 or 15 minutes. And I hear what you're saying. For you, it's not good. That helps me. I then really 10, 15 minutes and I wake up and I feel refreshed.
Well, see, if you can do that, then,
Mhm.
that's okay. Like David will take like a 20-minute nap and he will literally just lay down, close his eyes. 20 minutes later, he bounces back up and goes about his day. It's like, jeez,
Yeah, no,
he's so annoying.
yeah. So actually, with something like that, I should probably start doing that. Just even just because there are times I don't fall asleep, but I just need to, I don't know, clear my head just to, well, clear it out. And so sometimes I don't fall asleep, but it's nice just to lie there and do nothing.
Yeah.
Not even listen to music, just simply nothing. And that does feel good. But yeah,
Mhm.
I do need to develop better sleeping habits and to stop eating like a Spaniard. So no, I remember that. Where did that just I don't know, sometime a long time ago we were talking with a bunch of people and someone said that about eating like a Spaniard. Yeah. All right, very good. So moving on. In our third half, the Ethicist newsletter in the New York Times offers advice on life's trickiest situations and moral dilemmas from the philosopher Kwame Anthony Appiah. We thought we would share one that was published in 2021. What are your thoughts on the spouse of an early onset Alzheimer's patient dating while said patient is still alive? By way of background, my mother was the full-time caregiver of my stepfather until a few months ago, when he was moved to assisted living, and she is lonely and missing companionship. The man my mother has chosen to date is in his mid-70s, 7 years older than my mother, has lost all his money, had 3 failed marriages, and generally has a poor reputation. The way the news was broken to us children, 2 stepchildren, including me, and 2 biological children, could have been better, and we are worried that our mother is acting out of fear of being alone. My siblings are hurt, angry, and dealing with their father slowly dying, and it's so hard to watch. My mother seems hell-bent on dating this man and is not receptive to hearing our concerns. It was never going to be easy to see her with someone else this soon, but seeing her with this man is alarming. It's also unlike her to be callous toward the feelings of her children. My fear is that if we draw a line in the sand, she will pick him. But anything short of that seems as if it would be ineffective. Name withheld.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
What?
I'll let you go first.
Yeah. That's a toughie. You know what? Um, hmm. Had I been in this situation, yeah, I would have sat down with my siblings, and the 4 of us, you know, it was especially when it came to our parents when they got older, we were all in the same mindset, so that was never an issue. But yeah, my concern would be alienating. Uh, yeah, it would be alienation and pushing someone away, and wouldn't want to do that. And I don't want to be callous and say, well, the choice is ultimately hers. But beyond that, I don't know what I would just, yeah, and as a united front, that the 4 kids just sit down and say, Mom, this is our concern. But nature is going to take its course, and all you can do is just say to someone, okay, this is what we see, and that's it. What do you think?
Well, what do you think about the fact that her husband is still alive and she's going out with another guy?
Oh, yes.
I mean, one
You
part
know,
of this issue is the guy that the kids don't like.
yeah, and his reputation, and not it doesn't just seem like by reputation, but his actions, that it's just not good, and money issues and all that. To in this situation, no, about going. No, because it's this person in general. If someone has Alzheimer's and their partner, I'm not saying is ready to move on, but meets someone and that person sparks joy, yeah, I would, yes, I think that would, no, yes, that would be okay. I was going to say I think, but no, that would be okay. I would need to make it, I would really, yeah, that would be very important to let, kids know if there's no kids in the picture, whoever is close to you to explain that. And so that it just shows that you have thought this through. It's not just some knee-jerk reaction, but no, I would be okay with it.
So have you watched the BBC Call the Midwife series?
Oh, I have, yes. Not recently, but yes, I have seen several episodes, yes.
So there was one recently where I forget the names of the nurses, but one of the nurses meets this guy at a Spanish class, and she asks him, I think she asks him if he's married, and he said, "I lost my wife about 5 years ago." And then she finds out later on that the wife is in a nursing home with Alzheimer's disease. And she said, "Why didn't you tell me that you were married?" And she said, "Why did you tell me you weren't married?" He said, "I never said I wasn't married. I said I lost my wife 5 years ago." And he said, "I lost, I don't have a wife anymore. She's, has this disease, and she's, not a companion. She can't even, go to the bathroom alone." He says, I go to see her out of, the commitment I made to our relationship, but I don't have a wife anymore. And I think in these situations, now she writes it's early onset Alzheimer's. I don't believe that from what she writes. I think this guy's further along than what maybe she wants to admit, because if he's got to be in assisted living and the mom was taking care of him, he's got to be more than early onset. But be that as it may, I think that that's a decision an adult can make, that if her husband's not her husband and doesn't even recognize her and can't offer her that companionship, then if she meets somebody that she can go out with and have somebody have dinner with, or go see a movie, or have sex with, whatever it is that she needs, that I don't personally see that as a problem. The kids, though, it seems to me from what I'm reading in this letter, as though they're really upset about the guy she chose. And I would guess that they're worried about money. That they're worried mom's going to marry this guy, and this guy is going to spend all of mom's money like he spent all of his money, and they're not going to have any inheritance. And that might sound cold too, but I've seen that a zillion times, that, when they're saying, "Oh, it's like Man of La Mancha, I'm only thinking of him." They're not only thinking of him.
Right. Yeah.
That's the last thing they're thinking about. They're thinking about the inheritance. And, I think that if they talk to mom, like you said, and mom says, "Hear what you're saying. I realize," maybe she says, "I'm only going out with him for the sex. I'm not going to marry him, and I'm not going to give him our money. Don't worry about it." Or maybe mom says, "I'll do whatever I want with myself and my money, and, with all those kids, you got to bet there were plenty of times that mom said, "Oh my God, what are you doing? You're ruining your life." Think about it. But, kids have to make their own decisions and parents have to make their own decisions. Hopefully the family's not going to be torn apart because of it. They communicate, but that's what I would say.
Okay, makes sense. The other thing when you mentioned about that episode of the midwife, yeah, I do understand. The guy saying, "Oh no, I don't." That he has not had. Technically, he has not had his wife for what was it, 5 years? Yeah, I'm sorry. He should have. Yeah, you explain to somebody. I haven't had a wife in five. Or I lost my wife 5 years ago to Alzheimer's. She is in a nursing home, but this is not the woman. I mean, yeah, I don't. Yeah,
he should have closed that circle.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that. Yeah. Okay.
But it would have made as good a show if he had done that, because what would they have talked about for the rest of the time?
Boy, I didn't think of that. Thanks, Marianne. Yeah. Oh no, I understand, and I'm talking about real life, not.
Real life. Oh
no.
I just get so confused between Batman and real life.
I'm still in shock about the whole morning person thing. I just Dios mío. So let's see what.
So what does Kwame say?
Well, let's find out, shall we? Here we are. Two distinct problems are entangled here. On the one hand, there's your sense that your mother is betraying your stepfather. On the other, there's your worry that the person your mother is dating is bad news. Let's start with the first, more ethically challenging issue. Your feelings are entirely natural. Early-onset Alzheimer's often progresses especially fast, and at the stage it has clearly reached, it deprives us of the person we once knew and loved. There's a special heartbreak that arises from the doubleness of someone's being here but not here. It's a loss that must hit everyone in your family in different ways. We talk of marital commitments as running until death do us part. We also know that many marriages end in divorce. Having a living, undivorced spouse who no longer recognizes you falls into neither category. Your stepfather did not break his vows or reevaluate them. Nonetheless, he has effectively left the relationship, been removed from the relationship, in a permanent and irretrievable way. Your stepfather's advanced dementia has, in short, robbed your mother of her husband. Making sure that a spouse is cared for is one commitment that marriage entails, and having served as a full-time caregiver, your mother has clearly done so at real personal sacrifice. But we should not want our spouses to abjure the companionship of others once we are no longer available to them. Indeed, nobody in your family has a right to expect this of her. The painful truth is that her status is ethically equivalent to that of a widow. As for the very different worry that your mother's beau is going to let her down, I agree that his track record is worrisome, and given his situation, one could wonder whether there's a financial aspect to his interest in her. If you believe she's at risk here, you should try to persuade her to be cautious. Yet that will be especially hard if she thinks you're really motivated not by concern for her, but by loyalty to your stepfather. That's why you should do your best to work through your feelings and get your motives clear before you start. Then you can tell your mother that you are happy that she has found companionship, but that you hope she has thought about what her new partner's history means for the prospects for their relationship. Whether she takes any notice is, of course, for her to decide. But this doesn't mean that those who love her shouldn't offer their advice.
What do you think of his answer?
Yeah, that's all you can do. You know, people have their own, you express your concerns, and that's it. People make their own choices. But again, it's got to when you express your concern. I like that he says you have to get your feelings and motives clear before you start. Yeah, you don't want to say something, in anger or just something stupid without, thinking it through first and just, waiting until you're calm and clear-headed to say what you want to say. What do you think?
I think he gave a good answer, and hopefully they've by now talked to each other and sorted it out. But I also hope that listening to these scenarios are helpful to our listeners who are in similar situations, so that they can, think about them and think about how they would respond or what they would do.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you can control is you. You cannot control somebody else. So yeah, that's why it's good. Just like I said, to get your motives clear before you start. Your feelings and your thinking clear. Okay. And with that, that's it for this episode. Please stay tuned for the continuing saga of Everyone Dies, and thank you for listening. This is Charlie Navarrete, and from Aiden Ryan, the author of The Fountainhead. When I die, I hope to go to heaven, whatever the hell that is.
And I'm Marianne Matzo, and we'll see you next week. Remember, every day is a gift.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. All discussion on this podcast, such as treatments, dosages, outcomes, charts, patient profiles, advice, messages, and any other discussion are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your primary care practitioner or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding your health. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard from this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Everyone Dies does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, practitioners, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this podcast. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast by persons appearing on this podcast at the invitation of Everyone Dies or by other members is solely at your own risk.